What's up, sports fans, and welcome to the Sports Opinions Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Alex Cuesta. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at @A_Cuesta30. Find Sports Opinions on Twitter at SportsOpinion30, and also find it on Instagram now at SportsOpinions30. And of course, always visit the Facebook page where you can get all the content from the past that we have put up here through Sports Opinions. And if you're listening, thank you very much. As always, you're listening from one of the amazing outlets that we are on, starting with Spreaker, YouTube, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Play Music, and Apple Podcasts. Today, we will be doing our weekly sports betting for the NFL. This is week 2. Unfortunately, Wally can't be with me this week, so it's just going to be me solo, but that's okay. We're going to switch up the format a little bit because last week, me and Wally went over every single game, and we really don't need to do that. That was a little long-winded, I know. Anyone that listened to the whole thing, thank you very much. I hope you got a little bit of advice out of it. But I also hope that a lot of you did not pick with me because my picks were pretty abysmal last week. I'm going to go over those picks, and then what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the 3 big games of the week that me and Wally picked out the big games and how we saw them, and I'm going to give you basically, if you're going to bet them, a little bit of advice on how to bet them and if I would even touch them at all. Then I'm going to give you my 3 locks of the week, and as always, my Jets pick of the week because they surprised me in an amazing way week 1, and I like to homer every once in a while. So getting right to it, last week I had an absolutely awful week. It was not... If you bet with me, then you lost money. And I'm sorry. I'm really sorry if you lost money. But I went 1 of 4 last week. It's not the start that I wanted to have, but it is what it is, and we'll get better. Last week was a really weird week in terms of games and scores. There were 2 absolutely gigantic blowouts. We had a tie. We had no rookie head coach win in their week 1 premiere. We had some games that were closer and they shouldn't have been. So last week was a weird week. I'm not giving myself any excuses, but it was a strange week. I'm going to run down my picks, where I went wrong basically and who I trusted, and then we'll go from there. So my first pick I had, it was the Atlanta Philadelphia game, the Falcons versus the Eagles. It was on that Thursday. Falcons were coming in to try and defeat the defending champs. I thought the Falcons had more firepower than the Eagles did, especially with the Eagles starting Nick Foles. But the Falcons did seemingly what the Falcons do. They disappointed. Matt Ryan couldn't get one of the most high-powered offenses in the league going. They should have been able to go nuts. The only guy that was a shining star for the Falcons was Julio Jones, 10 receptions, 169 yards. But I had them at plus 2.5. They lost 18-12, so didn't cover there. Philadelphia ends up getting that win in a super disappointing fashion. I also had the Giants going plus. I took the Giants plus 3. They were at home in their home opener against the Jacksonville Jaguars, another team that I thought offensive firepower was going to be aplenty. Apparently, I thought too much. Odell Beckham had a crazy night, crazy day, just like Julio Jones had a crazy night. Beckham had 11 catches, 111 yards. But the Giants never really could get too much going. The stats are deceiving on the offensive end because the Jaguars controlled that whole game. Jaguars won 20-15, so my Giants plus 3 took a loss there. Just disappointing overall. The Jaguars defense is stellar. It's an absolutely stellar defense. They have weapons all around. They can rush the passer. They disrupted everything about the Giants line, and I'm convinced that the Giants line is awful, but I think that the Jaguars line is going to do that to everyone this year. But it's pretty bad. The Giants line is pretty bad. Their defense played okay, holding the Jags at 20 points. Stopping Blake Bortles is nothing to call home about. He didn't do anything too special. He never does. Leonard Fournette went out of the game. Kind of killed one of my fantasy teams. But Leonard Fournette went out of the game, and TJ Yeldon picked up right where he left off. It seems like the Jags really didn't change their game plan. They were very run-heavy, very reliant on Yeldon, and it paid off. So Again, lost that pick. I had Giants +3. The final score was 20-15 Jacksonville. So again, no cover there. Third game I picked, Bills versus Ravens. Ravens at home. I saw the Bills +7. I know they were starting Nathan Peterman, and he's god-awful. But they had LaShawn McCoy. They have Kelvin Benjamin. They have Zay Jones. They have some guys. They shouldn't be an awful offensive team, but apparently Nathan Peterman, he's probably the worst quarterback in NFL history. I don't think that's a stretch. Rookie Josh Allen came in to spell him, but it was too little, too late. I picked the Bills +7. Baltimore kicked the crap out of them, 47-3. Joe Flacco looked pretty good. He looked like playoffs, Joe Flacco. He was 25 of 34, 236 yards, and 3 touchdowns. I think every wide receiver had a big day. Michael Crabtree, the newcomer, Willie Snead, the newcomer, they both had big days. Kenneth Dixon was the leading rusher of the game with only 44 yards, but he also had a touchdown. Just tells you how porous that the Bills' defense was and that the offense was just unbelievably inept. So they lose 47-3, and Josh Allen is reportedly going to start this week. So if I see something out of Josh Allen, I might ever pick the Bills again this year. But as it sits, probably never going to pick the Bills again for this season because they're just that god-awful. Next game that I selected was the Buccaneers versus the Saints. Really, really thought the Saints were going to run away with this one. They have an improved defense. Their defense was pretty good last year. They obviously have Drew Brees. Drew Brees is a stud. They have weapons around him. Alvin Kamara behind him, running the ball. And the Buccaneers were starting Ryan Fitzpatrick. And as a Jets fan, I see what Fitz can do. I know that he can be good, but I also know that he could be really bad. And holy cow, did we get the good Ryan Fitzpatrick. We got the really, really good Ryan Fitzpatrick. The man had a career day. Helped the Buccaneers put up 48 points and win the game 48-40 in New Orleans, in the Superdome, in the Dome. The Buccaneers won. It was ridiculous. They were up big early. They only scored 7 points in the fourth. Saints came rumbling back, but it was too little, too late. Big story out of there for you fantasy people. Anyone that Michael Thomas probably had the most ridiculous day of their life. He had 16 receptions, 180 yards, and a touchdown. If he's in a PPR league, that's unbelievable. But overall, really disappointed. It's another game I was disappointed in. Disappointed in the Atlanta game. Really disappointed in this game. I picked Drew Brees -9.5 against the Bucs. I really thought that they were going to run away with that one. I didn't think the Bucs defense was that great, and obviously they gave up 40 points, so they're not. And I also just didn't believe that with Ryan Fitzpatrick, the Buccaneers had that much firepower. Now everyone's going with Fitzmagic again, and they're going to praise him and thank the high heavens, and he might have a good year. He might have a good run, but I don't believe in Ryan Fitzpatrick after what he did to my Jets in year 2. Can't believe in that guy, but good for him. Good for him. He had a good game. So right there, I'm 0 for 4. 0 for 4. And the last pick that I had to come down to was my Jets. And, that was a tough sell going into this week with the rookie quarterback starting. Don't know what's going to happen. I picked the Jets +6.5. I thought that, I said, Detroit, if they're a better team, they're not a touchdown better than the Jets. I didn't think they were a touchdown better. I thought they were maybe 3-4 points better, but I never thought a touchdown better. But I never saw the Jets winning 48-17 on Monday night. Holy cow. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. They beat the hell out of Matt Stafford. They stuffed the run game. The passing game was kind of inflated by the late fourth quarter where the Jets just literally sat in zone and Stafford was able to get what he kind of wanted between the 20s. But that defense just held together, and in a really, really, really Jets fashion, Sam Darnold throws a pick 6 on the first pass of his career, but comes back and is poised. Really, really poised. I think he was 16 of 20, 180-something yards, 170-something yards for the rest of the game after that. Threw for 2 touchdowns, a nice laser beam to Robbie Anderson, a good pass to Quincy Enunwa where he did the work in the end. The Jets fired on all cylinders. They scored a touchdown off a punt. They scored defensively. They just did everything. So the Jets put together a full game, probably one of the most full games under the tutelage of Todd Bowles. He's not calling the defense anymore. That's Casey Rogers. They have Jeremy Bates in the offense. The new look offense is different. There's a lot of motion that goes on before the play. But for a rookie, the offense looked organized. It looked pretty neat. They didn't take a lot of penalties on offense, which is, again, rare for a Jets team. And the kids showed a lot of poise. So overall, it was a great game for the Jets. I picked the Jets plus 6.5, and there we go. They got me a win on the line. So they win in the game, and they got me a win against the spread. So overall in the week, again, I was 1-4 last week. I don't know if that makes you turn off this podcast right now thinking that I'm going to give you advice for this upcoming week. But here we are, and here I am. Big games this week for me come down to Minnesota at Green Bay, Kansas City at Pittsburgh, and New England at Jacksonville. Those are the big three. The lines are pretty tough for especially two of them. I'm going to start with Minnesota versus Green Bay. They got Green Bay at -1. I'm looking with these spreads. I was looking last week. We were going off of Wally. He has his bookie page that he refers to, so it's a legitimate spreads. This one was off CBS Sports, these spreads, and they were recent as of today, which is Wednesday the 12th, so pretty recent. But one interesting thing about this is that I was looking over on Twitter, and not too long ago, and I think maybe just like 12 minutes ago, there's still no line on the Minnesota-Green Bay game. So even though CBS has the line at Green Bay -1, according to the Westgate Superbook in Vegas, there's no line. I really think they're waiting. I know Rodgers is playing, but they really think they're waiting to kind of, they don't know. Because if Rodgers isn't healthy and he's not 100% or even 70%, this game is definitely in favor of Minnesota. But if Rodgers is good to go, because mind you, if you watched last week, Rodgers had a knee injury that he got carted off for, came back, ended up having a miraculous fourth quarter, throwing 3 touchdowns, coming back, winning 24-23 against the Bears. But if he's not 100% healthy, 100% mobile, able to go on that knee like he needs to against a Minnesota defense that can get after you, he's in trouble, and I don't think he's 100% healthy. That knee still looked like it was a little banged up, even when he came back. So I really don't think that Aaron Rodgers is 100% healthy and mobile. I know he had a massive fourth quarter, but even when he was in there, he only, he mustered 3 points, even when he was in there, and that was earlier in the game. So it's, for me, looking at it, I'm going to take Minnesota +1 if I am going to bet. Now, mind you, this is a game I'm going to stay away from. I'm not really going to go anywhere near this game because that line is just way too low for me, and especially in a toss-up game. But if I was going to pick anything, I'd go Minnesota +1. So right now, the Vegas Superbook has no line, but if the line does sit at -1 Green Bay, I would just go +1 Minnesota if you had to bet it, because I'd bank that even if Minnesota loses, this might be a field goal game at most. So you would obviously lose there, but again, this is basically me saying that Minnesota should win the game if Green Bay isn't running on all cylinders with Aaron Rodgers being 100% healthy. The next game that's super close, that's kind of a toss-up, is New England at Jacksonville. Now, Jacksonville's defense, now this is going to be a second straight week that New England plays a really good defense. New England played the Houston defense last week, which Wally kind of laughed at me, and I said, don't take Houston lightly. Really don't take them lightly, because that defense is as legitimate as you're going to see. And it showed. They held a really high-powered offense to just 27 points, which isn't much when it comes to the Patriots, and they scored 20 themselves. So don't sleep on the Texans. The Texans are not a bad football team, and they made a lot of their hay in the second half. So Texans aren't a bad football team. Jacksonville's defense is probably arguably better than Houston's. They can get after the passer in every which way. Their secondary is absolutely stalwart. So what are we looking at here? What's Tom Brady's kryptonite? Tom Brady's kryptonite is being hit, is having to move. When you're bringing pressure up the middle, when you're not giving Tom too much of a chance to really break down a defense to a zone or something like that, when you're playing man, makes his life miserable. Those are his kryptonites. So for him, he's looking at a really, really, really tough game. Only thing that they have going for them, besides being the Patriots and having Tom Brady, is that I still don't believe in Jacksonville's offense. They were only able to muster up, what is it? How many points did they score last week? They only scored 20 points against the Giants. Giants do have a good defense, don't get me wrong. But they didn't look great against the rush. TJ Yeldon had his day, whatever he wanted to do there. Leonard Fournette really was doing whatever he wanted there. They had holes in the secondary left and right. If Blake Bortles was a better quarterback, this would have been a higher scoring game. So I don't believe in that offense. So I do think New England is going to end up winning the game. The line is sitting at New England minus 1.5, and I'm going to take that line. I'm going to take New England beating Jacksonville by more than 1.5 points. I think that's a pretty safe bet. But this is another game that I'm probably going to avoid just because Jacksonville's defense is that good. And like I said, the kryptonite we've seen for Tommy Terrific, Tom Brady, is when he's getting hit. And Jacksonville's home. They have a decent fan base now that they're winning. I know Jacksonville usually doesn't have a great fan base. None of the teams in Florida, besides like the Dolphins, have an amazing fan base at home. But the Jags can do something. They can do something. They have the ability to slow down a Rob Gronkowski or whoever the hell he's going to throw to on the outside. It's going to change every week. They have a good rush defense. They can get after Tom Brady. So they might be able to do enough to disrupt this. Like I said, I think New England's going to win. If I had to bet, I would take New England minus 1.5. But again, the defense is tough. They face two tough defenses, the Patriots, to start the year. So if they're 2-0 after this, that's kudos to them. The final game, which is a little more wide open, is Kansas City at Pittsburgh. The line here says that's Pittsburgh minus 4.5. And from what I saw against them in the Browns, yes, it was a rainy, crappy game, but I didn't see much. I saw a team that missed Le'Veon Bell. Yeah, Connor had a lot of yards. He had a lot of touches. I think that was more of a we're trying to prove something to Le'Veon thing. But they had a tie. They tied the Cleveland Browns 21-21, who I think is much improved anyway. But they did tie the Cleveland Browns. That is a factual statement. So what do we have? We have a team that tied a team that they probably should have beaten. They were home. They're home for the Chiefs here, and Patrick Mahomes had one of the best premieres from a rookie in terms of, I consider Patrick Mahomes a rookie. He sat for a year. This is his first real snap. Again, I didn't have faith in the kid. I'm still not completely high on the kid. It's 1 week. 1 week doesn't crown you great, but he had a great week. Found Tyreek Hill a good amount. Tyreek Hill had a ton of yards, 169 yards, 2 touchdowns. He looks to be the part a little bit. They can run the football. Kansas City has a good defense. I take Kansas City plus 4.5 in this game. I know Pittsburgh's home. They're probably pissed at what happened, but they are distracted by Le'Veon Bell not being there. And now you have the players in the locker room talking trash about Le'Veon, saying he's selfish. They're distracted. This definitely distracts them. They still have AB. They still have Big Ben. Their defense is improved, but it's still not your typical Steelers defense. I would take Kansas City plus 4.5. I think that's safe. If the Steelers do win, I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think this is going to be a grind them out game. And Kansas City has enough firepower to hang with them. So in this game, if this game's a much safer game to bet, plus 4.5 is a good number. So I would take Kansas City plus 4.5. So those are the big games. Those are the games that, me and Wally decided were the biggest games of week 2. There were a few more that were pretty big, but we just decided to go with those. The lock games that I picked this week, I have the Giants versus Dallas, I have Cleveland versus New Orleans, and I have San Francisco versus Detroit as my 3 lock games. I'm going to start with the Giants visiting Dallas. Dak Prescott was not accurate last week. Looked pretty damn bad. I really put a lot on his shoulders. They're starting a rookie center. I believe he's a rookie. They have a rookie guard. So that line wasn't the same. Zeke Elliott was getting hit a lot in the backfield. I didn't think they got him involved enough, to be quite honest. But it really came down to Dak Prescott's inaccuracies. He had a wide open touchdown pass that he missed. He underthrew a lot of guys. He put a lot of balls at guys' feet. And it wasn't one of those moments where he had to put it at the feet. It was going to be picked. It was just an accuracy. And I've heard a lot of guys, a lot of people that are doubters of Dak Prescott. That's what they doubt, is that he can be accurate consistently enough. And, you know, people were saying, they brought up all these stats that when Dez Bryant wasn't around, he was a better quarterback. He didn't prove it last game. No Dez Bryant, very little results, and they lost. Cole Beasley tried his ass off to try and make up where Jason went and left off and be the third down guy. But Cole Beasley's one dude. Allen Hurns needs to step up. Allen Hurns needs to start to be the possession receiver that Dak Prescott needs. He's a big body guy. Get in front of some of these smaller corners. Put your body in front. Give Dak Prescott a big target. He's not the most accurate quarterback. He needs a big target. And the fact that nobody but Cole Beasley is really getting separation is screwing him. He was hit a lot. He was sacked a lot. He stood back there a lot because there was a lot of coverage issues. So there was a lot of coverage sacks. So the Giants defense can look to feast here. My lock here is that New York Giants +3 against Dallas. If Dallas does win, it won't be by a lot. 1 or 2 points, maybe. I think the Giants have a good chance of walking away with this one. Sorry, Joel. Love you. But I do think the Giants have a good chance of walking away with this one, especially if Dak continues with his accuracy issues. That Giants defense is going to feast. And the Cowboys defense held up really well last week. They did a really, really, really good job last week. But unfortunately, Cam Newton doesn't have the weapons, and they don't have a guy by the name of Odell Beckham that Eli Manning has at his disposal. He has Odell Beckham. He has Sterling Shepard. He has Evan Ingram, who had an awful game last week, but should be better this week. The one saving grace that Dallas does have is they have a good pass rush. They have Lawrence. They have Taco Charlton. They have some good pass rush that can get after Eli, and they're going to need that again. They're going to need this defense to get pressure on Eli, because if he has time, he's going to pick them apart. But my lock is New York Giants +3 for this game. Next game that I have, I'm doing Cleveland, New Orleans, and I'm a big fan of any lines that are big. You usually want to bet a team covering that big line. Now, what I mean is, this line right now is New Orleans -9 against Cleveland, and it's not crazy to think that because Tyrod Taylor looked pretty bad. He was the leading rusher of his team, a team that has Carlos Hyde, Nick Chubb, and Duke Johnson Jr. So there's something wrong with that offensive game plan, or Tyrod Taylor was just looking to run way too damn much, and I put it on that one. He didn't pass the ball well. I think this team's going to go to Baker sooner than later if Tyrod continues to not pass the ball. When you have weapons like Jarvis Landry, Josh Gordon, David Njoku, pass the ball. Pass the ball. Put the ball in the air. The Browns put the ball in the air a little more later in the game, and what do you know? Josh Gordon catches a touchdown. A really athletic touchdown. So the Browns defense played well. The Saints looked pretty damn bad for a little bit. They did score 40 points, but there was a time there where they just didn't look like themselves, and the Browns have a pretty good defense. They're really banking on the fact that Tyrod Taylor can't score against his Saints team, and that's why they're going -9, but I picked Cleveland to be a better team. I think Cleveland is a much better team than they were last year. I think Tyrod Taylor might get the hint that he needs to throw the ball a little more. So I really do think we see him air it out a good amount more this week. I don't think we're going to see him be like a 300-something yard dude. He's still going to run. He's a running quarterback. But I do think we see him pass more, and I think we see him be better at his job. If not, Baker Mayfield will start week 3. But I'm going to pick Cleveland +9 here. I think that's a lock. I think that New Orleans isn't going to beat them by 10 points. I think that's a pretty big line. Cleveland is still looked at as the redheaded stepsister of the league until they prove otherwise, and I'm going to go with Cleveland +9 here. Last lock game is San Francisco at home against the Detroit Lions. I saw the Detroit Lions get their ass absolutely annihilated against a New York Jets team with the rookie quarterback who threw a pick 6 on his first throw while Detroit was home. I don't have much faith in these guys. They're away. They're over. They're in San Francisco. Matt Stafford really got beat up. Really got beat up by the Jets. They didn't have, I don't know if they recorded a sack, but they had a lot of pressures. Matt Stafford was uncomfortable, especially in the second half in that game. Even had to come out for a little bit, and Matt Castle came in. It didn't look good. Detroit didn't look good at all at every single phase. They missed some field goals. They played awful defense. Matt Stafford threw 4 picks. It was tough. The 49ers are looking to bounce back. They started to click a little bit at the end of last week. Even though Jimmy G suffered a loss, the kid's still talented. He can still throw the football. Still has some decent weapons around him. I like San Francisco to win this game. San Francisco, the line is minus 5.5. I like them to cover that. I think they're going to win this game by at least a touchdown, if not more. So I really believe in Jimmy Garoppolo. I think he's a stud. I know he struggled a little last week. He did throw a pick to end their comeback chance, or he fumbled, one or the other. I think he threw an interception, but that's going to happen. He doesn't have the rush that he had last year. Last year there wasn't that much game film on him. There's a lot more on him now, but I think he's going to adjust. I think he'll overcome that. And I like this San Francisco team. I think they have talent. So I think minus 5.5 is more than enough that they'll cover, and I think Detroit is just bad. So that's my other lock. I have San Francisco minus 5.5. And on top of that, I told you guys last week I'm an absolute homer. So I'm going to give a Jets pick every single week. This week, my Jets pick, they're going up against Miami, and I absolutely hate this line. I hate the line because they have the Jets as the favorite. Whenever the Jets are the favorite to do anything in my history, they end up screwing it up. We had such a good week last week as Jets fans. We watched a Monday Night Football game where we weren't the ones getting dismantled. We were dismantling another team. We were watching the team click on every single cylinder, which we haven't seen in God knows how long. The victory was immense. It was awesome. And it was tied at 17-17 at one point. And the Jets scored 31 points in a quarter. The third quarter alone, 31 points. Nobody knew what they were watching. The announcers didn't know what they were watching. Fans didn't know what they were watching. Guarantee everyone in that stadium were absolutely miffed. Awesome moment when all the Jets fans gathered behind the Jets benches. Fireman Ed leading JETS, Jets chants. It was a cool moment. But that moment's gone. The Jets, I hope they're not living in the past. And I really hope that they're going to be smart and they're going to play, football like they did. They're going to put this behind them. And I really, honestly, really hope that Sam Darnold plays as good as he did last week. If he does, and they run the ball well and they play good defense, there's no reason why they can't win this game pretty handily. The Dolphins got themselves a win as well, but they're never a team that I believe in. Ryan Tannehill is not a guy that I believe in. I think he has his time, and the Titans are shaping up to be a pretty bad team, and they gave up 17 points in the fourth quarter to the Titans last week. And they had to score 17 themselves in the fourth quarter. It was 10-3 going into the fourth. So that tells you a good amount. I think the Jets looking like a better football team overall. It's just quarterback is the question. But I'm going to pick Jets -3 here against Miami to defend home turf and win the game by more than a field goal. So thank you for listening. This was the Sports Opinions Podcast, Week 2 NFL picks. A little bit of an updated format. Gave you less teams, a little bit less talk. And I think we're going to stick with something like this for the future. If you have any lines yourself, you have any bets yourself, throw it on, leave a comment. If you think I'm awful, let me know. Hopefully Wally will be back next week. I think he'll be back next week. We're going to miss his picks. We'll talk about how good he did. Wally's going to bet this week anyway, so he could probably tell us about the picks that he made this week as well. But it'll be fun. We'll be back next week. I'm Alex Cuesta. Again, I'm your host. Find me on Twitter, Instagram at @_Cuesta30. Find Sports Opinions on Twitter at SportsOpinion30. Instagram, Sports Opinions 30. Facebook page, go visit it. Just search Sports Opinions Podcast. And listen to any past episodes. Listen to this one over and over again. That'll be welcome. You can do that on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, YouTube, and Spreaker. Again, thank you for listening very much. This was the Sports Opinions Podcast. Have a good one.